When we first saw this house, it looked perfect. A big old home sitting at the end of a quiet street. White walls, tall windows, and a porch that wrapped all the way around. My dad said it was a dream house. My mom said it felt like a fresh start. My little sister Emily ran through the halls and yelled, "This one is ours." We laughed that day. We carried boxes inside, ordered pizza, and said it finally felt like home. But the house had other plans. It was Emily who noticed it first. One night, just a few days after moving in, she woke me up. Her face was pale. "The kitchen's gone," she whispered. I frowned. "What do you mean the kitchen's gone?" She said she had gone downstairs for water, but when she reached the bottom of the steps, the kitchen wasn't there anymore. Instead, there was a long hallway that stretched into the dark. We told Mom and Dad in the morning. They laughed and said she was just dreaming. Houses don't move and rooms don't disappear. But Emily swore it happened. And the next night I believed her. At exactly midnight, I woke to a sound I had never heard before. The walls groaned, the floors trembled. The house shifted like something alive was moving under its skin. I heard doors slamming open and shut all around us. My parents came out of their room in a panic. Emily clung to my arm, crying. When we opened our bedroom doors, nothing was the same. The hallway outside was gone. In its place was a narrow passage twisting downward. The front door was missing. Windows showed nothing but endless black. We were trapped. From that night on, the house never stayed the same. Every midnight, the rooms rearranged. The kitchen might be upstairs. The bathroom could be behind the basement door. Sometimes a staircase led straight into a wall. Sometimes a door opened into a brick surface. One night, I opened a window to escape. But instead of seeing the yard, all I saw was endless black. Not the night sky, just nothing. On the fourth night, we found a hidden room. It smelled of dust and old wood. Inside, there were photographs nailed to the walls. Families smiled when they first moved in, but were terrified in later pictures. My mom gasped when she saw a picture. Someone had written across it in red letters, "You can't leave." Emily cried. My dad tore the picture down. But the truth was already in our heads. This wasn't just a house. It was a trap. The next night, things got worse. At midnight, we didn't just hear the walls moving. We heard voices and whispers. At first, the voices were far away. Then it came closer, right outside our doors. "This way, follow," they said. Sometimes they led us to doors. But those doors opened into empty drops, endless stairs, or rooms that locked behind us. The whispers weren't helping. They were hunting. We tried everything. My dad smashed a wall with a hammer. But behind it was only another door. My mom tried setting fire to the curtains. But the flames went out as if the air itself refused to burn. We tried breaking windows. They only showed more black. Food spoiled after midnight. Fresh fruit turned rotten in seconds. Water turned foul. We grew weaker. The house grew stronger. We began to fight. My dad swore we could beat it. My mom wanted to destroy it. Emily just cried every night. And me. I started to wonder if we'd ever see daylight again. Then one night, a new door appeared. It glowed faintly like moonlight was leaking from the cracks. None of us had ever seen it before. We opened it together. Inside was a massive hall, darker than anything else in the house. Floating in the air were hundreds of doors, spinning slowly. They led nowhere. Some opened and slammed shut on their own. In the center stood a mirror. When we looked into it, we didn't see ourselves as we were. We saw ourselves wandering, lost, trapped inside the house forever. Our reflections walked in endless circles, never finding a way out. Emily screamed. My mom pulled her back. My dad just stared at the mirror, pale as death. That's when we understood. We weren't just trapped in the house. We were becoming part of it. Every night, the shifting, the whispers, the maze, it wasn't just to scare us. The house was feeding on us, our fear, our hope, and our lives. That's why the photos showed other families. They weren't just lost, they were absorbed. Their laughter, their screams, their memories, all swallowed by the house. And soon we would be too. So let me ask you, if your home changed every night, if every midnight the walls groaned and the doors vanished, would you survive long enough to see the morning? Listen closely. Do you hear it? The sound of a clock striking midnight. Because if you do, it might already be too late. I still remember the drive out to Grandma's house. The road stretched for miles, winding through fields and dark clusters of trees. My parents kept saying how good it would feel to spend some time in the countryside. But for me it didn't feel good. It felt strange. Grandma had been gone for almost a year now, but the thought of staying in her house made my stomach twist. I loved her, I really did. But her house had always given me chills. Even when I was younger, I would find excuses not to sleep alone in the guest bedroom. When we pulled into the driveway, the house stood there waiting for us. It didn't look abandoned. The grass wasn't too long. The shutters weren't broken. The white paint was still there, only peeling a little. It was as if someone had been taking care of it while we were gone. I stared at the porch where Grandma used to sit every evening, rocking back and forth in her favorite chair, humming soft tunes. For a moment, I swore I could almost see her there, but the chair was empty. That first night, I woke up thirsty. The old wooden floor creaked under my feet as I padded down the hallway. The house smelled like perfume. It wasn't my mom's perfume. It was the exact one Grandma always wore. A soft lavender scent. The kind that used to linger on her clothes whenever she hugged me. I froze, and then I heard a humming sound, low and gentle, drifting through the dark. It was the same lullaby Grandma sang to me when I was little. My chest tightened. My ears buzzed. "Hello?" I whispered. The humming stopped. I stood in the hallway, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. For a second, I thought maybe it was my imagination. But the smell was real. The sound was real. And deep inside, I knew it wasn't just in my head. The next morning, I didn't tell my parents what I had heard. They wouldn't believe me. But something else happened later that day. We were unpacking boxes in the living room when I noticed the old rocking chair by the fireplace was moving. Slowly back and forth. No one was sitting in it. "Must be the wind," Dad said when I pointed it out. But the windows were closed. The chair creaked again, rocking harder for just a second, before settling back into a slow, steady rhythm. Then I saw a blanket. It hadn't been there before. It was Grandma's blanket, the one she used to wrap around me on cold nights. I felt my skin prickle. No one in my family said they put it there. That evening, I wandered upstairs. The house was quiet except for the groan of old wood. I ran my hand along the faded wallpaper as I walked down the hallway. And that's when I saw a door. It wasn't supposed to be there. I knew this house. I'd spent so many summers here, running up and down this exact hallway. That door had never existed. My fingers shook as I reached for the knob. It opened without a sound. Inside was a small room. Dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts. On a little table sat Grandma's knitting needles, a ball of yarn, and a half-finished sweater. On the wall was a wooden cross, and beneath it her old Bible lay open to the Book of Psalms. I stepped inside, my breath catching. Everything in the room looked fresh, untouched, as though she had just left and would be back any second. I left quickly, slamming the door shut. When I ran to tell my parents, they swore they had no idea what I was talking about. When we went back to check, the door was gone. That night the sounds came again. I heard footsteps. Slow, careful steps moving down the hallway one by one closer to my room. I pulled the blanket over my head and closed my eyes. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then the door handle rattled. And the mattress dipped. Something, or someone, had sat down at the edge of my bed. I could feel the weight pressing against me. I didn't dare look. I just lay there shaking until I slept. The next morning when the sunlight filled the room, the spot was still there. A dent in the blanket, as though someone had been sitting there all night, watching me. The following day I tried to convince myself I was dreaming. But then I found the note. It was lying neatly on my bed, folded in half. I opened it with trembling hands. The handwriting was delicate, curving. I knew it instantly. Grandma's handwriting. The note said, "Don't go to the basement." I dropped it on the floor and stumbled back. When I showed it to my parents, their faces went pale. But they told me it was impossible. Grandma had been gone for months. Still I kept the note. I couldn't throw it away. Why would she leave me a warning? That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the basement, the forbidden place. I waited until my parents were asleep. I picked up a flashlight and went downstairs. The door to the basement groaned as I opened it. Cold air rushed out, smelling like damp stone and old wood. I stepped down slowly, each stair creaking beneath me. At the bottom, I swung the flashlight across the room and saw dusty boxes, old furniture, cobwebs, and photographs. Hundreds of them scattered across the floor, tacked to the walls, shoved into boxes. They were family pictures. Some were from decades ago. Some were from last year. But in all of them, even the ones taken after she had died, Grandma was there. My hands shook as I lifted one up. It was from Christmas, just months after she had passed. Mom, Dad, and me smiling at the table. And there in the corner stood Grandma. Her face pale, her smile twisted. I dropped it and suddenly my flashlight flickered. And then, in the silence of the basement, a voice whispered close to my ear. "I'm still here, Danny." I ran. On my last night in the house, I woke up to the sound of creaking. The rocking chair. It was moving hard this time, thumping against the floor like someone was rocking furiously. I sat up, my chest tight, and then I saw my grandma. She was sitting in the chair, her gray hair falling around her shoulders, her hands folded neatly in her lap. At first she smiled. A warm, familiar smile. But slowly her face began to twist. Her mouth stretched wider, too wide, her teeth sharp and shining in the dim light. Her eyes darkened, hollow and endless. "I never left," she whispered. Her voice was layered, broken, as if two people were speaking at once. "And neither will you." The lights flickered. The walls groaned. The house shook as though it were alive, breathing, pulsing around me. The door slammed shut, trapping me inside with her. The next morning, my parents called my name, but I didn't answer. They searched the house, room by room, their voices echoing through the halls. When they reached my bedroom, my bed was empty. But the rocking chair was moving. On it, neatly folded, was my favorite hoodie. And down the hall, the hidden door had returned. Inside, a sweater sat on the table, the yarn moving on its own, knitting itself slowly. This happened when I was 9 years old. I was returning with my parents from a basketball game when we stopped by the old flea market outside town. Rows of wooden tables stretched across the dusty field. People were selling everything: old books, rusty tools, cracked dishes. My parents looked for kitchenware, but I wandered off to a corner stall that smelled of dust and mothballs. That's where I saw an old doll sat on a shelf, slouched forward like it was too tired to sit up. Its face was pale cloth, stitched into a smile that looked forced. One of its button eyes was missing, leaving a dark hole. Its dress was tattered lace, yellowed with age. I should have felt scared, but I didn't. I felt drawn to it, like it was waiting for me. The old woman running the stall noticed me staring. She didn't smile. She leaned closer and whispered, "That one's not for sale." But when my parents came by, the doll was suddenly in a paper bag pressed into my hands. The woman's face was pale, like she was glad to be rid of it. I carried it home, hugging the bag against my chest. I don't know why. I just knew I had to keep it. That night, I placed the doll on the dresser across from my bed. Its stitched smile faced me in the dark. The missing eye seemed to follow me no matter how I turned. I pulled the blanket over my head, trying not to look. That's when I heard it. A voice, soft, whispering like air through broken glass. "Tell me something no one else knows." I froze, my heart thumped so hard I thought my chest might crack. The voice came again, clearer this time. "Tell me your secret." I should have screamed. I should have thrown the doll out the window. But something about the way it asked made me feel safe, like it wanted to keep me company. So I whispered, "Sometimes I sneak cookies from the jar when Mom's not looking." The doll didn't answer, but I swear its stitched smile stretched wider. The next morning, strange things happened. The jar of cookies was gone. Every crumb, every piece. My mother swore she hadn't touched it. My father accused her of eating them late at night. They argued over it while I stared at the doll on my dresser. Its button eye seemed to glitter. At night, I tried to ignore the doll. I rolled over, pulling the pillow tight. But just as I was drifting to sleep, the whisper returned. More? Tell me more. I shook my head. I don't have any secrets. The air grew cold, the house groaned like it was alive. Shadows pooled in the corners of my room. More? The voice hissed. Terrified, I gave in. Sometimes I skip brushing my teeth and lie about it. The doll went quiet again. But in the morning, the bathroom mirror had words scratched into it. Crooked letters, written by something not human. That day my sister walked past the doll. She stopped, frowning like it had spoken to her too. Later at dinner, she blurted out a secret she'd never admit before. She had broken Mom's vase last year and blamed it on me. Each day more secrets slipped out. My father admitted he was hiding money from Mom. My mother confessed she had thought about leaving us once. They fought louder and longer every night. And the doll looked newer. Its dress was cleaner. Its missing eye wasn't just a hole anymore. It was dark, glassy, wet like a real eye forming. By the third week, the house was falling apart. Dinner was silent. My parents wouldn't look at each other. My sister locked herself in her room. I knew why. The doll was feeding. At night, it moved when I wasn't looking. Once, I woke to find it sitting on my desk with its head turned toward me. Its stitched smile looked sharper. The whispers grew bolder. Bigger secrets. The ones that hurt. When I refused, things got worse. Doors slammed on their own, lights flickered, cold drafts swept through the hall. Sometimes I heard footsteps at night, soft, uneven, like someone dragging themselves across the floor. And the doll was always closer in the morning. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what this thing was. So one afternoon I sneaked into the attic. Old trunks and boxes sat in the dark. In one box I found newspapers. I flipped it and my blood froze. One headline read, "Family destroyed after child brings home doll, secrets exposed, house left empty." Another, "Cursed doll believed responsible for family's disappearance." There were blurry photos, but I saw the same doll in every one. The stitched smile, the missing eye, the tattered dress. My hands shook as I dropped the paper. When I turned around, the doll was there. It wasn't on my dresser anymore. It wasn't in my room. It was standing in the attic doorway waiting. That night the doll didn't whisper. It spoke loud and clear in my head. "Tell me, the darkest one." I begged it to stop. I covered my ears, buried my head in the pillow. "Tell me, or I will take it myself." The walls groaned, the lights burst, my sister screamed in her room, my parents shouted downstairs. And then I broke it. "There was an accident," I whispered. My throat was dry and tears rolled down from my eyes. "Years ago. Dad told us never to speak of it. He hurt someone with the car. He never told the police." The house fell silent. The doll stood in the corner. Its smile stretched so wide the stitches ripped. For a moment, its lips were real, curling back to reveal tiny white teeth. Its button eye gleamed. Its other eye blinked. The house shook as whispers poured from every wall. My father stumbled into the hall, pale and trembling. My mother sobbed. My sister clutched her ears. The doll had feasted. I tried to end it. I grabbed the doll and ran to the fireplace. Flames roared as I shoved it in. But the fire hissed, turning black. The doll crawled out, unburned, smiling wider. I threw it into the river. Hours later, it was back on my bed, dry, waiting. I locked it in a box. By morning, the box was empty. The doll sat neatly on my pillow. It leaned close, its voice soft as breath. "I know all your secrets now. You'll never be free." The family didn't last. Dad left after the fights grew violent. Mom stayed in her room, whispering to herself. My sister packed a bag and disappeared one night. And me? I was left with the doll. It sat in the rocking chair by my bed, dressed neatly, smiling like it owned me. One night, I woke to find it sitting upright, its cloth skin smooth like flesh, and its lips were red. It looked almost like a human. It turned its head slowly toward me and whispered, "Do you have a secret for me?" The room went dark. The chair creaked. And I realized the doll wasn't just feeding on our secrets. It was becoming us.